Welcome to the Get Fit Guys, quick and dirty tips to get moving and shape up. My name is Brock Armstrong, and I'm the Get Fit Guy. You know, I've written about why exercise is essential for bone growth before, but it is such an important subject that I think it is worth repeating. And this time, to set the stage for us, I've asked a fellow named Dr. Marc Bubbs, who was a previous guest on the Get Fit Guy podcast, to fill us in on why this is so important. Now, Dr. Marc Bubbs just published a new book, and it's called Peak 40, The New Science of Midlife Health for a Leaner, Stronger Body and a Sharper Mind. And in the book, he covers many issues like bone density and gives a clear prescription for all of them. So here's Dr. Marc Bubbs.
Brock, thanks for having me on the Get Fit Guy podcast for some quick and dirty tips for bone health. My name's Dr. Marc Bubbs. I'm the performance nutrition lead for Canada Basketball, our men's Olympic team, as well as professional and recreational athletes all around the world. Now, midlife is a really important time to start thinking about what you can do to support your bone health, and it's not an obvious time because loss of bone density is a silent condition. We don't really feel that we're losing any density in our bones. It's also important because half of adults aged 50 and older are at risk of breaking a bone and therefore really need to be thinking about their bone health. 1 in 2 women and up to 1 in 4 men will actually break a bone in their lifetime due to osteoporosis. We know that for women, that incidence is higher, and it's actually higher than the combination of heart attack, stroke, and breast cancer risk, which makes it a really important topic again in our late 30s and 40s, early 50s and beyond to really implement and lay down these habits that we need to keep our bones strong throughout life so you can perform at your job, at home, and in your favorite sport and pastime. So let's do a quick review here of definitions. What is osteoporosis? Well, let's use the World Health Organization's definition. It's a progressive, systemic skeletal disease characterized by low bone mass and micro-deterioration of bone tissue, with a consequent increase in bone fragility and susceptibility to fracture. So effectively, we're losing mass in the bone. It's becoming more brittle. And when it becomes more brittle, you're at a much greater risk of fracture, and that's where things can really start to go wrong. Now, a hip fracture is a major issue because it's going to derail the quality of your life for anywhere from 6 months to a year. If you're over the age of 65, then 50% of hip fracture patients struggle to return to the same level of independent living they had previously. The good news is that the response of bone to aging is similar in both men and women, although we know that men tend to attain a higher peak bone mass. The age-associated losses in bone mass tend to be accelerated in women, and this is particularly in the early postmenopausal period, because estrogen plays a really key role here in bone.
Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of what it is exactly we're trying to avoid, let's look at some ways that we can move our bodies to help maintain those strong bones. Let's start with this. Bone density loss is not usually a systemic or whole body problem. It's simply an indication of where on your body your bones have not been loaded enough or not loaded correctly. So, your bone loss is likely not happening equally all over your entire skeleton, but rather in a few key places. Now, the first step is, of course, to identify if you have bone loss and then to find out where. The best way to do this is through what's called a DEXA scan. Then, once we know we have bone loss in a specific region of the body, we can treat it with weight-bearing exercises. And no, I do not just mean lifting weights. To encourage your bones to regenerate, you actually need to flex your bones, as odd as that sounds, which tells the bone cells to grow. And while that can involve lifting weights, it can be achieved in everyday ways too. Now, let's say you have bone loss in your hip bone, which is actually more accurately the head of your femur. Then you could look at ways to make walking a heavier activity. For example, you could stop using a wheelbarrow to carry around mulch in your backyard and start carrying it around yourself instead. And we'll get into more examples in a bit. If we don't currently have bone loss and we don't want to have any in the future, what can we do? Well, remember that bone generation and regeneration is stimulated when we load the bone. Now, that happens best when it's under tension and being squished by weight that is at least as heavy as our own body, but heavier is better. And also when your muscles are tugging on the bones. So, to truly stave off future bone loss, we need to weight bear and resistance train. Again, a little creativity can transfer this out of the gym setting and out into the real world. So, here are some examples of some great weight-bearing activities. Dancing, hiking, walking and jogging, jumping rope, carrying and moving heavy loads, like groceries, heavy gardening, like digging and shoveling, stair climbing, playing tennis, and the list goes on and on. But if you do want to satisfy your bones needs in a more traditional workout setting, look no further than the 5 essential exercises. Now, the 5 key exercises that I would love to see all of us modern, convenience-loving, chair-dwelling, workaday grumblers incorporate into our lives are push-ups, pull-ups, squats, planks, and rotations. And don't worry, I'll link to an episode and some videos all about that in the show notes at getfitguy.quickanddirtytips.com. Now, of course, there are some genetic components to bone loss and also some things that you can do nutritionally to help encourage your bones to get and stay strong. But if we want bone to grow, we need to start by squeezing the bone cells. Without squeezing the mechanoreceptor cells, all of the delicious bone-growing nutrients that we ingest to support bone growth won't be able to do their job. Your body can have plenty of them around, but it won't know what to do with them. So, squeeze, squish, and flex those bones. Now, before we wrap up, one last word from Dr. Bubbs.
Thank you for listening. My name's Dr. Marc Bubbs. If you enjoyed this content, you'll love my new book, Peak 40, The New Science of Midlife Health for a Leaner, Stronger Body and Sharper Mind. If you have any questions about today's content, please reach out on social media at Dr. Bubbs on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Take care. Be well.
All right. I'd like to thank Dr. Bubbs for helping me out with this episode. Very good stuff. Thank you. And don't forget to tune in next week because I'm going to be talking to, let me check my notes. That's right, Colleen and George from Icon Fitness. And they're going to help us figure out how to buy the appropriate online workout platform. It's going to be a good one. Now, a reminder. You can find me on social media all over the place as Get Fit Guy, but you can find me personally, Coach Brock, all over the same places as Coach Brock Arm. That's Coach Brock Armstrong, but without the strong. Coach Brock Arm, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those good places. All right. My name is Coach Brock Arm, and I'm the Get Fit Guy, asking you, what are you waiting for? Get out there and strengthen those bones.